Hi, welcome to this Kickstarter preview video for Microbots Duel. This is a nice game that comes into this really small, thin little box. Actually it has a little sibling, an expansion, the Power Up. And it is a game that it's really concentrating on the battle between two Microbots, as the title indicates, having two players playing back and forth between each other, trying to destroy the opponent's armor. Think of these battle bot arenas where you have those custom battles with saws and laser guns and hammers and mechanical parts that are trying to rip off each other so that there is only one standing. We've all seen these shows, and they're very unique and powerful, so you get to do this now on the tabletop, on the table, against a fellow player. So it's a very interesting game because it has, I would say, a lot of different cool ideas packed into this little tiny box. And one thing that I like more than tiny games is the micro games, because they also come in smaller boxes and they have surprisingly a lot of interest and depth and choices to offer, and this is one of those cases. It's a perfect example of this. Even though it comes with a handful of cards, some cubes and some trackers essentially, the game offers a lot of variability and a lot of different options, and I'm sure that you'll find out when playing that every session is going to be different. The reason for that is that you have the option all the time to select which cards you play, and when you play cards, if they are weapons cards, they go on the left side, and if they are support cards, they go on the right side of your bot card, and that means that they add up in a queue on the right, on the left, and depending on some abilities, you count how many cards you have already played for this or that side. This is really interesting because the timing is really nice, and you have also cases where you want to do combat, which is going to be very frequent because your goal is to diminish the armor of your opponent and win the game. And when you do combat, you have different things that you have to account. Is the actual card that you use to attack. Then it's the effect of the defense of your opponent based on the range, if they're long range, short range or medium range. They get different type of defense value, 1, 2 or 3. And then you have to account for the power tokens that you play secretly. Simultaneously, you select one power token, you open it, and you add this value to your total number. And then you try to see if you surpass your opponent's defense during this combat attempt. And if so, you hit this amount of armor points and deduce it from the total. And no more than 3, which is really nice and it's balanced. So I would say that the game is very interesting because it has a lot of tension back and forth. You always have to see what your opponent is trying to build up to in terms of where he's placing his range, and the range tracker, because it's common for both, meaning how close I come to you or how far I am from you, and that affects the abilities of different cards. The recharge card is really important because it allows you to pick up your cards back into your hand, gain some energy, which is a major thing that you want to do, because by playing energy you acquire new action cards to do new cool things, but also recover, or I should say make available again your power tokens, because if you have played your high numbers like the 5 or the 4, then you'll not have them until you play the recharge card. So timing is really important in this game. So bottom up, just to cover this really cool aspect before I go into explaining the video and the rules of the game. The game is extremely small, has a small footprint, has tiny components, very functional and good looking, by the way, but very tiny, and offers, and this is a contradiction, a very full experience that if you have thrown into the mix big plastic miniatures and big painted miniatures and boats and surroundings and boards, etc., this could have easily been sold out as a full blown up game with anything missing from the recipe or the mixture, I would say. So take that under thought and join me on the table. I'll show you how the game works. I'll be very methodic and detailed as always. I'm going to put timestamps for quick jump as per chapter, so that you can quickly check everything that you're specifically interested for, or go back towards to check again something that you missed. And then we're going to come back at the end of this video for a final wrap-up from my first impressions from the game so far, and why I think this is something really cool that deserves backing on Kickstarter and deserves a place into your collection. So let me show you how it plays. Welcome to this preview video for Microbots Duel. This is a tin mint game, means that it comes into this tin little box. It's hitting crowdfunding soon. So this is Microbots, a strategic dueling game where you must outmaneuver and outwit your opponent. You have various card effects like attacking, moving and various others that become more powerful based on how many cards you have already previously placed. So the order you play your cards determines your strategy, and you have to always decide if you hold back on your big attacks for maximum firepower or you deplete your opponent's defenses with the first strike. This is a very clever but very thinky and interesting game which has very simple rules and lots of fun. This is intended for 2 players, plays 14 to 45 minutes, ages 14 and up, and the designer is Simon Bell. The game comes with very nice components, even though everything is packed in this little tiny tin box, which is very nice, by the way. It's full of components and full of contents. And this is an expansion, the power-up expansion for Microbots. We'll cover this later. It's a separate tin box. So I have laid out in front of me all the components of the game so that you familiarize yourselves with everything. But let's start by focusing on the components and going through the details. First of all, we have 4 bot cards. I've used one here for Turbo and one here for Sparky, but there are 2 more, like Astro and Henry here, so you have always a choice. This is how a bot card looks like, with the name and the abilities there, which we're going to cover later, and this is Henry. And so you have 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. You also have a common combat tracker, which is actually, it's intended to go all the way up, so you may need just the first card or you can add the second one, and it tracks damage on the red track and defense on the green track, as you can see with those respective red and green cubes. There are also the range tracker, which is in the middle. This is a range where you have the blue cube starting at the blue shaded space, and it has long, medium and short range, which affects a lot of different things in the game. Then you have these cards. There are 2 status trackers, one for each player. This is a status card, which let me show you up close. It has 2 different tracks, which we're going to cover and explain later. By the way, it's a really good quality of cardstock. I don't know if they're going with this on the final production. Hope they do. It's very qualitative material and very durable, I may add. And each player gets one of those. So you have each opponent sitting across each other. There is a round summary card with all the phases of the game. You have the planning phase, the action phase, and the upgrade phase. We're going to cover them now. And there is an action summary with all the different actions as a reminder. Again, really nice. Hope they have 2 in the final production game. It's very useful to have one of each for each player. And then you have 12 power tokens, a set of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see here, for each of the players. So 1 set for 1 player and 1 set for the other player. Then you have 6 basic action cards. These are the basic action cards that you have, and these belong to the basic 2 group. There is a basic one with the cards for the opponent, and you have the retreating shot, the advancing shot, and the recharge. These are your starting cards. You also have 16 bot action cards. So for example, here, if I'm sitting from this side, I have Turbo, and I have a matching set of 4 cards for Turbo, which depict the icon of the Microbot on the top right side of the card. And there are 2 more sets. So I have my set here with 4 cards. My opponent has a set here. If he's playing Sparky, he has a respective Sparky set. And there's 1 set for Henry and 1 set for Astro, respectively. 4 cards each. Then we have 7 support upgrades and 7 weapon upgrades. These are the cards that I have set here as a pile and have opened 2 from each of the pile. You can differentiate, for example, the support cards because they have this green art, an icon, and this symbol. And these are the weapon cards, which have obviously red symbol and this art here. Okay, so from each of those decks, you have two that you set aside and have them always visible. So there you have it. These are the components of the game. Everything is laid out in front of you, so let's move into setup. Each player chooses a boat from the 4 available and takes the following. First of all, we have the boat card, and each boat has a different art, but also different ability, as you see here in this box over there. Then you take 3 basic action cards, a set of either 1 or 2. In this case, I have a set of 2, but you can have a set of 1. So my opponent on the opposite side has a basic set of 3 cards, which say here basic 1, basic 1, basic 1. Then I have my 4 boat action cards. These are specific, matched by icon and by name at the bottom to my microbot. So Turbo has its 4 respective bot action cards. Okay, so these are my cards. I also take one set of 6 power tokens. They depict 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The same goes for my opponent. And the last thing that I have is a status tracker here, which starts with the cubes, the trackers on the pre-shaded blue spots, respectively, for the yellow and green, which we're going to cover now. So this is identical on the opposite side from my opponent, which sits across me and has exactly the same. And the only thing that it's between us is the blue card with the range tracker. So this is how we lay out the cards. We have the component section, so we place the color cubes on the starting spaces as shaded in blue for the status tracker for each player and for the range tracker, as you see here. This is a range tracker. And then to the side, as I mentioned, I have created 2 different decks of 7 upgrade cards, which are consisted of respectively weapon cards here and support cards. 7 support cards and 7 weapon cards. Each deck has 2 cards from each deck face up so that they can form the market. And last but not least, we have the combat tracker to the side with the respective cubes to mark damage and defense respectively, to be used for combat. How to play? The game is played over multiple rounds, and each round has 2 different phases. The first phase is a planning phase, and the second phase is the action phase. We're going to cover those in detail just in a sec, but for the moment, let's see how you win the game. Winning the game. The game ends immediately when one bot's armor is reduced to 0. The surviving bot is a winner. The armor is the red tracker here, so if I'm here, armor 1, and I lose my last armor, that means that I lose the game and my opponent wins the game respectively. Okay, so let's go again into the 2 phases. As I said, we have the planning phase and we have the action phase. First, planning phase. The first thing that we do is we place cards face down. The second thing that we do is we reveal the cards, and the third thing we do is we determine first player. Very, very simple step in this phase. Each player chooses one card from their hand and places it face down. So let's say this is one player and this is the other player. Once this is done, the player reveals their card. So both players essentially reveal their cards, and we check the number on the top right side of the card. I'm going to explain the anatomy a bit more, but for the moment, focus on this number. This is 40 from Turbo. He played card with value 40, while Sparky played the card with value 62. The player whose card has the lowest initiative number takes the action phase first. In this case, it would be Turbo, because he plays a card with 40, which is lower than 62. So he has the action phase first. Now it's a good opportunity to check on the anatomy of the cards. For example, look at this card. This card has different aspects. First of all, the number on the top left over here is the initiative. Then we have the card type symbol, which is again a support card or a weapon card. Support with a green icon, weapon card with a red icon. Then you also have the name of the card. This is Turbo Boost in the border on the legend. And then you have the card icon. In this case, it shows that it's one of the set cards from Turbo, one of the 4 cards he starts the game with, together with the 3 basics. And in here, there is a text where usually is the actions that the bot can do. Respectively, since we're talking about anatomy, let's see the bot card. We have again here Turbo. It has the bot name on the top right. This clearly belongs to Turbo with the respective action cards. We have the bot ability printed on the card itself, the overdrive, and here we have the effect when boosted. So it shows the effect. This is the ability, and this is the boosted effect. So this is the 2 different type of cards in the game. Again, back to our round summary. We finished, for example, the planning phase, where we determined that for this card, for this round, since Turbo played a lower initiative card with the number 40, the player controlling Turbo will go first. Now, what happens is we proceed to the action phase. The player proceeds with their action phase because he has the lowest initiative, so he starts the action phase first. So, first he plays the card to the matching row. Then he resolves the card abilities. Then we have the upgrade, and then we move to the next player. Very, very simple. So the first thing that you do is you move the card to the weapon or support row. In this case, I played this card. Okay, so I'm going to click it next to the support row. If I have selected a weapon card, I would play it next to the weapon row. Again, if you have more cards there, if it's another round, I would play it here or here if this is my 4th card. Very simple, you just place your card to the matching row, either weapon on the left or support to the right. Then you may perform any of the instant actions listed on the card, and they must be resolved one by one in order from top to bottom. All actions are optional. So, this is the icon of the instant actions. It has 2 arrows pointing downwards. It says attack 2. We're going to explain the actions later on. So, at this stage, you perform the instant actions listed on the card. You just play it, and they must be resolved one by one in order from top to bottom. When then you move to the remaining actions and following them from top to bottom. When all actions on an action card have been used or skipped, you turn the card face down. Okay, so once you have used all, skip the cards, skip the actions, then you're done with the card, you flip it face down. We're going to cover this later, but keep in mind for this icon, which says, in this case, your turn, move, and shows the support icon. This icon is a held action that can be used later and at any time unless specified, and remains face up until used. Okay, but we'll cover this later. So, this is the second step of the action phase for the player, resolves the card abilities. Okay? The third step is upgrade. At the end of your turn, you may spend 1 energy to gain 1 upgrade card, either from the face-up cards or the top of either deck, and you place it in your hand. If you take a face-up card, you replace it immediately. And there's a reminder on the round summary here saying that the upgrade, which is described as the third step, it's to spend 1 energy to take 1 action card. Again, the action cards can be either from the top of each of the decks or any of the 2 from each of the deck that they are face up. Once you're done, if you have picked up one of the face up cards, you replenish it so that they're always two available. And after that, it's the fourth step, which is the next player goes through their action phase. Play the card that they selected to the matching row, resolve the abilities, upgrade, and then we move to the next round, where we again do the planning phase and then the action phase. Now, since we explained how the run goes, let's focus on the different type of actions. We already mentioned that we have the instant action, which has this icon. Instant action is this one. Let me show you up close. The instant action has this icon over here. So an instant action takes effect on the turn the card is played immediately. Then we have the held action, which is this icon over here. Held action, like this one that we see on this card. Held action can be used later and at any time unless specified and remains face up until used. Then you have the energy cost, which has the energy symbol. You pay the energies shown in order to use the card. For example, if you see the icon here, you have to pay the cost in order to use the action. And then you have the conditional effect, which is for this icon over here. That is very simple, occurs if the condition preceding the arrow is met. For example, in this card, if the range is L, then you gain the effect for the damage. This can be hit, at least one damage is dealt, miss, no damage is dealt, range X, the range marker is in the specific range zone as I have just showed you. You also have, for example, move X, where, for example, you move the range marker up to X spaces in either direction, left or right. You have the advance X, which you move towards the short S range. You have the retreat X, which you move towards the long L range. And then you have the attack X, which is resolve an attack with X damage. Which we're going to just cover more into the combat explanation later on. But for actions that reference either the icon of the weapon or the icon of the support as their value, you count the number of cards in the weapon for support or in the for the weapon cards or the support cards respectively to determine the value. So again, going back to our example here, we said that if the range is at L long, you gain the number of cards you have played in the support row plus 1 damage. That would be, in this case, I count the cards that I have played in the support plus 1, as indicated on the card, and I gain this for damage when I do this sniper shot, and it's thematic as well. And in this case, it would be 1 plus 1, 2. The combat. It has four steps. First, we determine the base damage and the defense. Then second, we play power tokens face down. These are the power tokens I'm going to show you later on. And third, we activate held actions. Fourth, we resolve the attack. So let's see how it works. First, we calculate the defense based on the range and damage. You may use the combat tracker, but note that this is just an aid. There's no maximum really damage or defense value. This is just for helping us calculate. So use the range to calculate base defense. I'm going to show you an example of the combat in just a sec, but keep in mind that the second step is that each player secretly plays one ready power token, one of the ones that they have available, so they need to be available, and secretly plays one of their ready power token and then reveals them, adding the value to their damage or defense respectively. The attacker on the damage, the defender on the defense. The third point is during combat, first the attacking player may use a held action or pass. I remind you, held actions are the ones with this icon. Then the defending player may do the same, and this continues back and forth until both players have passed in a row. The fourth and last step of the combat is to resolve the attack. You calculate the difference between the damage and the defense values. So you're going to have a total damage and a total defense. So in this case it's 5 and 3, for example. You calculate the difference between those two values, and if the remaining damage is greater than the defense value, then the defending player loses that much armor. So in this case, the player who was defending will lose 5 minus 3, 2 armor. So they're going to drop from 7 to 5. For a maximum of up to 3. They cannot lose more than 3 armor, regardless of the difference here. And finally, you resolve any other effects, such as hit or miss or after attack. A word about the power tokens that we have in our possession. Power tokens are used during attacks. An exhausted power token is one that has been used and remains face up. So all of your power tokens are face down, and they should be hidden from the eyes of your opponent in terms of numbers, so you don't know what they have. So these are all available, and they remain face up. A face up and remain face down. A face down power token means that it's available for you to use. If a power token is used, then it's exhausted and it will remain up. That means that in a previous round or a current round, I have used the power token number 4. You have the power 1, which is a boost token. Besides showing a number, says boost beneath the number. You place this token on your boat card when played, and your boat's boosted ability can now be used. That means that if I select this power token, I place it on my boat, and now I can use the boosted ability. Overdrive costs 1 energy, which normally costs 2 energy to move 2 on your turn, otherwise once per turn. But with a boosted ability, if I select this power token, then I can use overdrive for cost 1. This is just the ability of Turbo to get a feeling for. And you also have another power token, which is the 0. This token adds 0 power and it's never exhausted. Last, an important card is the recharge card that you have here. The recharge card is a main way to ready your power tokens again and gain energy, and retrieve player cards. First of all, when you play the recharge card, you ready all your power tokens. That means that any power tokens that you have played and they were exhausted, you ready them by turning them face down, like that. And then you may spend 1 energy, only 1 energy, to flip a card with a held action. Held action is the one that has this icon here. Let me show you again. This is the held action. So with 1 energy, you can spend 1 energy only to flip a card with a held action. And it says here, for example, you gain 3 energy, ready all your power tokens, return all of your cards to your hand, including this, leaving up to 2 in place, retain facing, if they were facing down, keep them facing down or facing up, and 1 energy, flip 1 of your cards face up. So this is basically a recharge card which you take back into your hand together with the rest of the cards, and then you can continue going. Very, very important card, and the timing when you play it is crucial. Okay, now let's see a combat example so that we get a very good understanding of how combat works in practice. Let's say Turbo here plays the assault with damage 3, which is this ability, assault, which is your weapons cards plus 1. So your weapon cards plus 1, that means that it's 1, 2, plus 1, 3. Sparky on the other side, defense is value is 2 from the range, which is medium, and it gives him 2 defense. Turbo plays the power 3 token. Let's say he selected power 3 token secretly, and Sparky selected the power 2 token secretly. So let's say his choice was 2, so spontaneously they reveal 2 and 3 simultaneously. That means that the total now is 6-4. Turbo uses the advancing shot held action to gain 1 damage, so the difference goes 7-4. And Sparky uses the energy shield, which has there, to gain 2 defense. So the difference goes to 7-6. Turbo uses the overdrive to move the range to short. So by using the overdrive, by spending 2 energy, he uses moves the range to short, because it says move 2 on your turn. And then what happens is the difference now it's 7-1, because his Sparky's defense was reduced from 2 to 1 due to the range, so now it's only 1 in the short range. So the total difference is 5-7. That means that we calculate the damage to 7 and the defense to 5 for Sparky with the trackers. And that means that Sparky now has to suffer 2 damage, which means he has to reduce his armor from 6, which was before, to 4. 6 minus 2 equals 4. And that's a complete overview, for example, of a round. You understand that this is very interesting because the timing, the cards that you have, the selection of the power tokens, the range where you are, and the abilities that they spark are important, and they give a very, very interesting and quick combat every time. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know about Microbot Duel, the game that hits crowdfunding soon. But just let me give you a brief description of the expansion, which is the Microbot's power up and what it contains. So let's see first the components. We have 8 bot action cards. So we have 4 and 4, 1 for brains and 1 for flash, and we have the respective bots. You see the flash new bot here and the brains new bot with their special abilities. We also have 5 cubes. We have, as I said, 2 bot cards. We have 14 upgrade cards, 7 support and 7 weapons, additional to the ones that are already in the core game. We have 10 power tokens, which are these, and they're very, very nice because they have special abilities I'm going to explain later on. And then we have 6 power up cards, which, as you can see, the slot to the right of your bot and tracker card to create a more complete dashboard. So the setup is very simple. For game setup, you place 3 power up cubes on short, medium and long range. One of those cubes, and those black cubes. You shuffle the upgraded power tokens and place 3 face up next to the range tracker, and you shuffle the new upgrade cards into the upgrade decks. For player setup, you place your bot's power up card into the right of your bot, as I've showed you here, and you place a power up cube on the 0 space of the card. So you start here on the 0, and the same goes for your opponent. 1 more cube is going to be used for the other player, and those 3, as I said, they're going to be used on the far left, the far right, and the middle of your range tracker, as shown in the rule. Then for power up introduces some new mechanics along with 2 new bots, brains and flash, the power up cards, the upgraded power tokens, the wildfire cards, which are these cards here, the purple ones, the orange ones, which are new, and the new mechanism, which is augment, and the new mechanism, which is disable. When you move the range tracker to a space with a power up cube, because again, let me show you, let me move this here so I can show you how this would look like in theory. I would start the game with 1 cube here, 1 cube here, and this again is going to be between the players. This belongs to the other player. It's going to go to 0. This goes here, and the last one goes here. So this is how it would look like. So when you move the range marker to a space with a power-up cube, the black ones, first you remove the power-up cube from the range tracker. Second, you raise your power level by 1 if able and use any ability there. And third, you take face-up power token from the supply and replace it. So you take a face-up power token from the supply with a special ability, as you'll see later on, and you replace it. You remove your power token with the matching number from the game, and now you keep the new one that you just got. The new token state matches the original one, whether it's ready or exhausted. And the fourth and last thing you do is your opponent places the power-up cube anywhere that does not have already a cube. So essentially there is a powered game between the range tracker now, because when you move the range there, you also gain those special power-up tokens, which are really, really cool. The wildfire card, which is a wildfire card, looks like that. Can be played to either the right upgrade side or the left weapon side. So it's like a joker. And the initiative value is calculated as your current armor times 10. In the event of a tie, each player chooses and reveals a card from their hand, which the lowest revealed initiative goes first. The attack action uses either weapon or supply. This does not need to match the row the card is played to. And a word about the tokens here. Let's move closely. Upgraded power tokens are really, really cool and have a bonus that may be triggered immediately during the reveal phase in combat. The attacking player bonus triggers first. So they have different icons like this one, the arrow pointing downwards. This is the augment one card. You have the arrow pointing up and down, which is the augment one card, then recall one card from the same row. This icon here means gain one upgrade card. This icon here with the arrow, like a U-turn, means flip a card face up. We also have this icon, like a cell. It says, it means gain armor, which is actually the armor icon. Then you have the +1 damage. You gain 1 damage if you're the attacker, and you have the +1 defense. You gain 1 defense if you are the defender. And there are some new keywords linked with the upgrade, the expansion. For example, the augment, reveal a card from your hand and place it face down to your matching row. Disable means your opponent chooses a card from the specialized or chosen row and removes it. It is set aside until picked up with a recall or a charge, so disabling it essentially. You have the recall keyword, which is pick up a card from either row. You may pick up a card that has been disabled. And flip, which means flip a face-up card, and you must have a held action to flip, for example. All these new keywords add a lot of additional options and strategy into the game. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know about microbots. I explained both the core game and the expansion, which is pretty cool. And there you have it. A very, very nice, interesting game. So let's wrap it up and go up. So there you have it. The game is extremely, extremely well crafted. I should say I'm surprised by the depth, and I'm surprised by the amount of satisfaction I gained from every single session I tried it. The game is really, really fast. It has a very fast pace, as it should. Two-player games should be very fast and quick back and forth between the players so that the tension is there. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It plays on the exact amount of time that you really enjoy the game, and I could say that you can easily go for a second session right after the first one, so this is really cool. It has a lot of replayability because depending on the abilities of the bots you take, the way that you steer the session, how you play your cards, which abilities you enable, the timing of you playing your cards, it's really, really different. And if you add into the mix of the core game, which is a full game by the way, the expansion, oh, that becomes so much better. It's a very good game, really, really good game on its own. But if you tried the expansion, you would never want to try it again without the expansion. It's that good because it adds a whole new level of different things, like the wildfire cards, which are joker, either side you can play them, the power cubes, the power card where you can go up on special abilities, the special power tokens that you can pick up a power token by moving onto a power cube with a range tracker. So you intentionally want to move the tracker of the range on a specific spot so that you can pick up one of the special power tokens which replaces a number that you have. So you can replace 5 with a 5 or 4 with a 4, so you still have the same set of power tokens, but you also get special abilities which are really powerful. So you go from a very cool game to a so much more customizable and so much deep game. It's already very satisfying, and it's a great game on its own. But I mean, boy, is it amazing with the expansion. I'm highly recommending that you pick up, if you pick it up, which I highly recommend that you pick it up, because it's a game that deserves publishing. You do pick it up with the expansion because it's a whole new level. As the title indicates, it's a power up indeed. So, extremely satisfied from the game. I'm highly recommending it. If you're a fan of teen games, micro games, you should not miss this one out. I only wish, my only complaint, it's not a complaint, it's a wish list, I would say. It also had a solo game, because it would be amazing if it also had a solo game, but I know it's very difficult to construct or craft a solo game for so competitive games, but it's not, I'm not saying that it's not doable, but it's really difficult. But in any case, as it is, it's a great game. I'm highly recommending it, so go and check it out. Make sure to visit the link in the description of the video so that you can go to the Kickstarter page and find out more, and stay tuned for the campaign because most probably they're going to release many more cool things during the campaign. So many thanks for watching.